Welcome back to another episode of Living Life with Brendan podcast. I've got my guest here today, Adriel Hansbrough. Super excited to have him join. Welcome, welcome.
Oh, welcome, man. Thank you. It's glad to be here.
Of course. Why don't you let the people know a little bit about you?
Oh, man, there's so much about me, right?
Keep it short.
Keep it short. Keep it tight. Born and raised Madison, Wisconsin. A lot of me is family. I'm a twin, so again, everything is sharing.
Identical twin.
Identical twins. So a lot of things have always been about again, family, sharing, togetherness, etc. As far as experience and what I've done throughout the course of my life, it's athletics, it's music, it's business, right? It's being a father, it's being a husband, being a friend. I mean, that's the easiest way to define who I am, right?
Married, 3 kids.
3 kids.
Perfect. Ages?
12 tomorrow.
Oh, yeah. Same birthday as me.
Yeah. Also,
Shout out.
Brendan, happy birthday.
Yeah,
December 16th.
Yeah, and Kevin.
We have a 9-year-old. She'll be 10 in May. And then we have a 6-year-old who will be 7 on the 1st of February.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And you met your wife at college together?
In college.
Perfect.
Yeah. She's also an athlete, so she's a star volleyball player at Northern Illinois.
No big deal.
No big deal.
No.
You know,
And that's where you play football?
I played football there. Yes.
4 years?
So 4 years.
Nice.
That's pre-COVID. You only got 4 years.
Oh, the change is pretty massive these days, isn't it?
I mean, there's a lot of changes that, as far as the NCAA and how it's evolved, how the players and athletes are treated these days, what they're given, what opportunities they're provided, because again, these are major opportunities. Like,
Right.
It's completely different from when we were playing and when we were athletes and the experiences that we had when we were in school, for sure.
How do you think the NIL is different, obviously, now? Do you think you would have got some money back in the day?
I always joke about that. I would have definitely got some money back then because again, identical twin brothers. My brother and I both played at Northern Illinois. We played the corner positions, opposite corner positions, and doublemint was a big time deal at that point.
Oh,
we would
yeah?
have definitely been the doublemint commercials. We would have definitely been some doublemint commercials.
That's great. I didn't have a brother. I have an older sister, and that's it. But I always wanted a brother. What was it like having an identical twin?
Different. It's different, and I didn't realize the extent of how different it is until I wasn't a twin anymore. And what that means when I say I wasn't a twin anymore is we shared everything. I'm talking from the womb up until we were sophomores in college. We shared the same room, right? And then sophomore in college, we still were housemates, and we still shared clothes. We still shared everything, but again, now there was this separation. I did not become an individual, nor did he become the individual until we graduated. We were done playing sports, all that stuff, and the adulting thing kind of happened, right? So now I'm here in Minnesota. He's currently in Madison. When we're separated, we're our individual selves. But the moment we get together, we become the twin thing again. So you learn and understand the difference between the power of having, well, essentially you right there to see it unfold and grow and have a very, very distinct picture of what you look like.
I've always wondered what that'd be, to basically be looking at yourself
Yeah.
all the time. It would be kind of cool. I mean, especially with clothes. You'd be like, what do I look like in that? Oh, that's exactly what I look like. Like that looks good.
Man,
that
that
looks
looks fresh, man. Let me wear that.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have, and I know I've read some of the stuff about identical twins being able to have like that 6th sense, 7th sense of where they are, if they're in danger, if they're in some sort of thing. Have you ever had that weird superstition about it?
Oh, I would say that we have something of that nature. the danger part and all that type of stuff. I don't want to experience that yet, so I don't know.
Right.
So, but yes, absolutely, we have that connection and that bond that is unexplainable,
Right.
for sure. The irony behind that is that even, they talk, you have this twin talk, this twin connection, where our parents did and siblings did say that we used to have, like, where it was just he and I communicating with each other, right, and nobody else could understand what we were saying. That carried on to even in the high school years, adulthood. Whenever we were uncomfortable in a situation, we find solace in each other to create that comfort. Okay. And it was via twin talk, not like gibberish or anything of that nature. Just it was almost like everybody else in the room could disappear, and it was just he and I in the room, and nothing else mattered. Right?
Is that how you used to cope through anything that was bad?
It future state, it kind of was. Right. It kind of was. And that came later, not too much later, but 2005, when we were still in school, we were still playing, and my mother was diagnosed with colon cancer, and she passed away when we were in college. So it was one of those things where it affects people differently. We had a support system in each other, but then at the same time, we had moments where we had to shut the world out, right, and we had to close the world off, and it was just this bubble with he and I, and everybody else disappeared for a short period of time, right? That's not necessarily a good thing, right? But at that time, that was our thing. We had a lot going on. We had a lot to get through, right? As anybody in that situation would, but there's always differences, right? The relationship that we had with our mother was different than the relationship that a lot of people can explain when they talk about their mother. Like, our mother indeed was one of our best friends, right? And that's not cliche in any sense of the word.
I'm in that same boat, by the way.
Yeah. Whereas if I asked you to ask a friend of mine, like one of my best friends, who was also one of our best friends, they too would say Mama Hansbrough was our best friend. Like, she was in our group. Like, whenever, every opportunity we had, we found ourselves somewhere around her, right, or coming back to her. So we had a very close-knit relationship, for sure.
So obviously having that out with an identical twin, I mean, you probably wouldn't even know where you'd be at that time to be able to leverage. Al is his name. Shout out. Yeah. Your twin.
Yeah.
Because I've talked about this numerous times through podcasts, is like, everybody's going through something, and everybody goes through tough challenges, and it's how we react and how we bounce back from those. And obviously I don't know what it's like to lose my mom, but I know that day comes, and I think about it a lot. And like, I just don't know how I'm going to cope with that. And so like, learning from other people's experiences and navigating through is something I think could all benefit other people as well. Yeah. You having your brother and being able to talk things through. And like you said, situationally, where you can get just kind of like you two are and no one else in the world, being able to communicate and navigate through had to be a blessing. And like you said, could have been a curse too, though.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, it took a lot of us growing up. It took a lot of us leaning on each other. It took a lot of us pushing each other. It took a lot of us guiding each other, right? Like the misconception of a lot of people is that love, like family and friendship, is about support in a positive way. Support in a positive manner, in a positive light, with positive feedback. But I would argue that and challenge that philosophy, because I believe that love, liking somebody, family, and all that and friendship is about telling the people what they're supposed to hear, whether they like it or not. Right. And I think that is the biggest thing. And I think I think that was the biggest struggle for us when we got to that point, was that we can cope, we can pawn it off as this is our escape, and do stupid stuff, and not do what we're supposed to, not handle business, and we started to trickle into that realm. And it was kind of a gut check where the two of us looked at each other and was like, all right, it's enough.
That's interesting you say that too. With I had an episode with Jenny, my nurse, my first nurse after my injury, that like I credit a ton, because she got to my bedside and was like, this is what it is. Like I had people being like, oh, you could do this, there's still chance of this. She was like, hey, we need to start working on this because it's bad. Like your situation is bad. And like, we need to figure it out. This is what it is. Laid it out for me exactly. Didn't sugarcoat anything. You get doctors walking by and people walking by and, oh, you're looking great today. She's like, this is what your prognosis is. Like, you can either sit here, do this. And I had her on and she's like, I love just telling people what it is. I think they need to hear it.
They should.
They need to hear it, because that's where you know where your starting point is.
And that's what your expectations should be set at. And the realization is, I can leave you with as much hope as you want to have, but let's call a spade in reality. People have chased hope tirelessly, endlessly, to no avail.
Right.
And that's because what lies in that hope that they're searching for is a story that's unattainable. And that is the hard part about it, right?
Yeah.
Like we had a choice. There was one point where we were talking to our coaches. They pulled us in. It was like, hey, your grades have slipped, right? Like, what's going on? We know what's going on, and it's kind of the same thing. Like, we know you've been dealing with a lot, and so forth. And then it's kind of like, okay, my brother and I actually sat down, and this is what I mean when we looked at each other and was just kind of like, all right, we got to get our stuff together.
Right.
Like, one, what would mama say if our grades slip, we went ineligible, we can't do this thing that we enjoy and love to do? Like, she would put hands on us, or worse, right? She would not tolerate it. So it was kind of like, get your act together.
Okay.
And after that point, 3.0s the next semester, 3.5, so forth, and then the progress. So we picked it up. But again, it's like, one of the greatest statements that I heard was, and I can't remember his name. What's the rookie that I think he played for Vegas, got in trouble in the car accident, played at Alabama.
The wide receiver.
Driving down the highway at 160. Yeah, Ruggs.
Ruggs.
And Nick Saban tells that exact story. He's like, who were the friends that he was with that night? Like, all they had to do is tell him, he's too drunk, you can't drive, it's not a good idea. They probably would have gotten into an argument. He probably would have been pissed. He probably would have said some choice words, but he would be living. That lady would be living. He would still be playing football, right, still be making money. Sometimes the hardest thing to say is the best thing to say.
Right. I think that's really good advice. I think that's good advice to the people. I think also situationally, with my injury, being able to try and look at the positives, and even when I'm having a tough day, I bring myself back to like day one of when I was injured, and like tubes everywhere, can't communicate, like just absolute garbage, right? And I'm like, why am I complaining today from where I was? Like, obviously we can all want more, but you said something interesting too when you talk about how the way that your mom would feel about you. You know what I mean? And people that probably have gone through loss, I don't know if it's hard, emotionally, or how to get to that situation. It sounds like it took you a little bit of time to get there, to finally realize, like, is this what they would want of me? And, 99% of the time, they're probably like, no, they don't want you to go down that road.
Absolutely.
But to be able to act on that is probably the biggest thing. And that's, why I wanted you to jump on the podcast with me, because we met like almost 8 years ago now. Crazy.
Yeah.
But, I think as we've grown our relationship, I like to think that, the good statement of, you are the company you keep, people tend to mesh together that have same like minds. You know, being able to put your mind in that situation, having that strong mentality. You know, we may not have correlated right away together just because we didn't know each other, but found our way as we have throughout the 8 years. And, you know, we've gone through quite a bit throughout those 8 years getting to know each other. But like I said, I think that mentality piece is just what drew each other right away. Athletes, like you said, athletes, military is the other one.
And big family.
And big family. Big family. And that's one of the things. I think we were, you know, raised with big family. We were lucky enough to have the support, but navigate through there. And so I know we did a lot at our jobs, and you've gone off to do, now you're in trading, doing your job that you like. As we progress throughout those years, and, you know, we've gone through some stuff just outside of work and hanging out. But during the time, you know, when you were down and when you're up, you know, we had talked about music being big. You're a big music person as well, as am I, just with all the stuff. I just listen. I don't play anything. I sing some karaoke. I was singing Friday night, by the way, just jamming away.
Oh,
but
solo act?
Yeah, and, you know, my parents jump in, so it's still fun. But I get friends that want to do it. COVID was big. We were doing karaoke, I think, every Friday night. And I know your family likes to get in on karaoke too, so we're still going to make that happen. But let's talk music a little bit.
Okay.
When you're having a down day, what are you playing? What's on the player?
It depends, man. So if I want, at any state, you know, my affinity towards Michael Jackson and the Jackson family. So if in any situation I just want to be picked up and just want to jam, I'm going to throw in Jackson. I'm going to throw in Michael Jackson. I'm going to throw in Jackson 5. I'm going to throw in Jackson. Now, a lot of people may not know those differences, and we can't get into the details on those, but there are major differences in that those three different categories. But that's where I'll go to. Really, if I need a soul cleansing, India Ari all day.
Really?
I will play her music just because the soul in her music and her tone and her voice and her lyrics, the message in her lyrics, the spirituality, the foundational support that is provided in her lyricism is it's uncomparable. Like you can't really compare it to other people. And it's unfortunate that her voice isn't the voice of the world.
Right.
But people have choices and people choose music, and a lot of times people get it wrong, but that's a different topic.
What do you mean they get it wrong? Everyone has their own choice.
They do have their own choice, and we definitely all have our choices. But you and I have had this conversation. Like, you can have a preference of what one likes and what one gravitates towards
versus a good singer.
Correct. Versus a good talent that is just undeniable. Like, that may not be your selection, but, you know, if you have a powerhouse voice versus a voice that isn't, and you choose the voice that isn't, you're just choosing your preference, not necessarily that it's better music, right?
Wouldn't you state that opera singers then hold down the fort as far as singers go?
I would not.
Why? They have the most powerful voices.
No, their voices are meant to be projected because they're singing on the stage, and they're singing a different style of artistry. But I've seen Whitney Houston sing operatic style. I've seen and heard Aretha Franklin do the same, and they're capable of doing it. Haven't, on the other hand, seen too many people from opera
move over
sing Whitney Houston or Aretha Franklin.
That's interesting,
right? So it's
a fair take.
It's a style. The reality of it is most country stars don't have a twang in their voice, but I think it's like kind of like a prerequisite to add a twang in your voice when you sing country, right?
Yeah.
And vice versa, there's different genres where people they kind of create this voice and this style of sound. And I think opera does that, right? Theater singing is extremely different than just your typical singer or artist.
I thought you'd say J. Cole for sure on a down day.
I can listen to J. Cole too, but when it's a down day for me, I need a soul cleanse, I go to NDRE.
So your favorite album then has to be something Jackson related?
Favorite album would probably be Jackson related. Definitely be Jackson related. I'm trying to think of, because that's a tough question, because I know every song that Michael Jackson's pretty much touched, and listened to all of them. And a lot of times people don't know how great his music is, because they haven't heard a lot of things. Like I am huge on the Triumph album, which is the actual final album that the Jacksons collaborated on, where it was Michael was full 100% in that project. They did have the Victory Tour album that they released, but Michael was kind of like 1 foot in, 1 foot out.
Yeah.
Situation. But the Triumph album is fantastic.
Nice. I like it.
Yeah.
I grew up with all sorts of music. I had Eminem's first album when I was in 5th grade.
Yeah.
Parents let me
got
listen.
It from Target.
Parents let me listen to it. They didn't know what was on it.
Yeah, gotcha.
Oh yeah, it was explicit. It was explicit. Thanks, Mom and Dad. But I just loved it, man. I fell in love with like rhythm, beats, everything. Then words, lyrically, melodies, flows. Like I love the way Andre 3000 raps. I love it. It's just poetry. How he plays on different words and connects different syllables and emphasis. Yeah. Eminem kind of does that too, where he can rap with whatever, the way he swings words through. Mm-hmm. Album wise, I loved Thug Motivation 101 by Jeezy. It's a terrible album, but I know every song.
But that would come later in life, though.
It was like 2006 or 7.
Okay, yeah.
It's just, I was in high school.
Sure.
I knew every song. Just every song was non-skip. There's a lot of albums like that. I mean, the Carter 2. This is like the Carter 1, Carter 2 came out with Lil Wayne.
So what is would you say the Wheezy is your go-to, or the Wheezy is just an album that kind of like defines you in a way?
The hardest thing about music for me is I'm everywhere. Mm-hmm. Like everywhere. There's days like if I'm slow or want to listen to like slow music, like that Jealous song, just so good. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that'll just put me in my emotions, and I can just listen to like 10 songs that just pull me down. Next song, I throw on like Nas or something, or DMX, and I'm like, I can change my persona of emotion based on what I'm listening to. And I think music has that power that's so great. It's like there's days where I'm like, hey, I just want to chill. It's raining out. I'm working or something, like on lunch, and I'm like, I'm just going to listen to some music. I don't want to run through a wall or drive my chair through a wall. I don't need to get hyped up for that. Mm-hmm. So I can throw on, these even just covers, like, you know what I'm talking about? I love listening to like younger artists try to do covers, try to like do Stay. Solos. Huh?
Like Stay.
Like Stay. I love Stay. I mean, Boyz II Men's a classic group too. I mean, I love everything they do, even when they cover Stay. It's also one of my favorite songs. I send that to Adriel probably monthly. When I'm in my zone listening to music, he'll know I'm in a good mood.
Pop up.
He'll know, you get a text. It's just Boyz II Men's cover of Stay. Oh, that's funny. You'll know be having a good night when you see that text come through.
Yeah, it's a couple Coors in.
Yeah. Usually, just a few.
Yes, we've had these conversations a lot, and we get into depth about music and more from an introspective standpoint, right? And the reality of it is, it's hard for me to have conversations with people that can't talk music. And it's weird for me when people say they don't like music, because it's an understanding that I can't relate to, because
100%.
we have three laws of the universe that either are directly tied to music or revolve around music, right? Because we have the law of vibration, we have the law of rhythm, and then you have sound, right? These are the laws of the actual universe. Everything surrounding us are incorporated in these elements. When you take music, that's all you're doing. Like, you can't play an off note and make it sound good. Like, you have to be on key. Everything has to fit. All the pieces have to fit together.
Right.
If they don't, from a timing standpoint, from a vibration standpoint, from a sound and a key standpoint, you don't have the success of that particular song or that particular album when you actually are putting that body of work together.
Right.
But when you do, you create this miracle, if you will, of sound and noise and vibrations and beat, and then you put lyrics to it, and all together it just puts you to a different place. And that's what music does for me, and it's always done that for me.
I agree 100%. There's certain songs where I'll hear for the first time and I would just know, like, I'm going to go listen to that 100 times.
Absolutely.
Like, and I won't stop. It'll be on repeat for 30 minutes. And I'll be like, I'll pick up things or key changes and I'll just be like, I love this. Like, I love this.
Yeah.
And then the hardest question I get sometimes is when I do tell people, like, I love music, all genres, they'll be like, send me a song. I'll be like, oh, you're going to put me in a nervous wreck here, because I could sit and think about it for days before I send you one song, and it could be one that someone just hates. But usually I have, a few that are like, well, what genre? Well, what timeline? Like, I know, what I mean? It's so deep. It's not just one that's on a top 10 chart right now. But, and then you get songs that have so many different emotions that tie to you when you're, like, let's say, like, I remember my first dance. I was in like 7th grade. I got into like this, or 6th grade, I got into this dance at the community center where, like, first time dancing with a girl, like grinding with a girl. I didn't know what I was doing. The first song was Ice Cube's "You Can Do It." And like, I will never forget that song in my life. Yeah. I got like pulled up on this fake car and was dancing with this girl to "You Can Do It" by Ice Cube. Now, that song will always have a place in my heart. Yeah. And I know it's ridiculous, but like, music has that emphasis to, like, I knew exactly what I was doing when I heard this song, and like, it'll never change for me.
But it's not ridiculous. And we both know why it's not ridiculous. But then we also know that both of us are also, we have a passion and love for the arts, not just music, right? And the arts, you're talking theater, you're talking movies, you're talking books, you're talking stories, you're talking all of these different elements of the world that the universe brings as far as artistry. And movies are another, right? Oh, yeah. And one of I know it to be one of your favorite movies, but it's also one of my favorites. It's definitely up there in the top. But Good Will Hunting.
Great movie.
And the scene where Robin Williams is sitting on the bench and he's with Matt Damon, and he's just sitting there, and you can see, being how great of an actor that Robin Williams was, you could see that he's wearing this weight and this burden from sitting in a room for hours on end thinking about his response to what Will had said to him, Matt Damon's character had said to him earlier, a day before.
About knowing all the answers.
About knowing all the answers and being the most intelligent person in that area or in the world, whatever have you. And he said after thinking about it, he came to the conclusion, he's like, that you don't know anything. You're just a little punk kid that reads stuff in a book. But what Robin Williams' character did and how he related that to it was exactly what you just explained as to why you remember that song and dancing with that girl for the first time. Was it the song that gave you confidence? Was it the song that said, just go do it, and gave you this advice that allowed you to freely go ahead and take that risk and take that chance and to expand and open up? But again, reverting back to the movie in that clip, he told Will, hey, if I asked you about war, you'll probably quote Shakespeare, right? If I asked you about love, you quote, and then he said an excerpt from a book. But again, he's going down this list, and he was like, but have you ever been on a battleground before? Have you ever held your best friend who is dying? Like, did you ever experience that? Did you ever stand at the Sistine Chapel and look up and actually smell what it smelled like and get the vibes and the feel from the room? No, you just read it out of a book, right? Translation: if you have a kid that's trying to learn how to swim and you read a book to them on how to swim every day and then throw them in the water, they probably won't be able to swim, right? So that's again the message, and that's what music does. It tells you the very specific moment that you listen to that song, and you'll remember it. Like, you'll remember the smells that were surrounding you. You'll remember what the time of day was. Was it sunny? Was it warm? You'll remember the sun beating on your face. All of these different elements. You'll remember the girl that you were with. That's also the beauty of music.
Yeah.
And that's why it's very, very important to me.
I love that. I think that's done really well. I agree 100% too. Yeah. And I know Steve would too. He's in a band. Guy. He's in a band. Yeah. So, no, like you said, it's hard to have deep conversations musically with other people, I guess we'd say, that don't just love the music and the arts of it. But no, that's really well said. Yeah. Because like I said, I still remember that song. Still remember being on top of that car with that girl. Yeah. Yeah. It's highlights. Great time. I didn't know what I was doing. She took the lead.
We definitely have to backtrack.
She grabbed me.
It definitely sounded like you sit on top of the car.
On top of the car. There was like a fake car with the DJ. Like he had the DJ stuff and then a hood of a car.
Gotcha.
She pulled me up. Yeah, I didn't make the move. She just grabbed me.
Center stage grinding.
Center stage grinding. Up there, I was probably 2 years younger than everybody else in there. I don't know how I got in. Yeah. Highlight. Good times. Yeah, music. Yeah, that song. Yeah. Ice Cube, baby.
I for real, man, honestly, I think music can take you to every stage of your life at some point and define it completely in its entirety.
I have my grandpa now, just turned 92. And he still sings, and I absolutely love it. I've got recordings of him singing, and it's just something that he loved doing his whole life.
Sure.
And it's just been super impactful with our life. My parents, we all, thankfully, I was in a musical household. Yeah. Now, my dad, mom sing. We all sing for the hell of it all the time, and it probably gets annoying, but we all just love hearing new songs. We love showing each other music, and absolutely. I'd rather have it that way than to be completely shut off.
Absolutely. And it's a beautiful thing too.
Right.
I again lost my mother in 2005. But I always bring elements of her, and sometimes it's via music.
Right.
And I remember distinctly when we were it was an old music store in East Town Mall in Madison, Wisconsin, when my mother picked out the New Edition Christmas tape. And it'd be her, myself, and Alva. And we'd be in the car anywhere we would go. During the holiday season, we would pop that tape in and it would just play the song, right? How that has been a big, significant part of my life is that we've made a tradition in my house. Every year when we set up the Christmas tree, mm-hmm. we put on the New Edition Christmas album.
Oh, that's awesome.
And we play the New Edition Christmas album. And it goes through twice while we're putting up the tree, and then it goes into the other Christmas songs and other people and so forth. But my kids know every song on that New Edition Christmas album. And a lot of it is because I remember distinctly being in the red van which we had a red minivan,
Yeah.
and listening to that album with my mother, blasting it in the car, singing all the songs, just having a grand time, right?
Right.
They never got a chance to, they never had the privilege
Right.
of meeting her. So I try to make sure that they have bits and pieces of her
I love that.
and keep her.
I think
And that's another
traditions
way.
are awesome.
Absolutely.
I mean, for the right reasons, right? The ones that you do, especially ones like this,
Mhm.
that they're gonna have that now for their lifetime, and then they get to choose how they want to move on with it, right?
Absolutely.
So you give them the creativity and the works to do it. I mean, we don't have any specific. We're starting to make new ones as a family.
Sure.
But they'll be fun. They'll be I mean, we have our big family like Christmas. We do have our
Mhm.
ones. But as it goes, with time, you kind of create new ones and keep those everlasting. I know you've had a big year within the last year as well, with just some more. If you want to mention that too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, we live in a world where, as you had mentioned, we deal with loss. Um, we deal with trials and tribulations, and the world testing us, testing our strength, testing our durability, testing who we are as individuals. And it comes in many different forms, right? And then last year, just a little bit over a year, I lost my oldest brother, and it was one of those situations. I don't know what kind of puts anybody on a trajectory. Um, I know that the death of my mother in 2005 again hits people differently.
And he was older than you?
He was
Okay.
he was the oldest boy in our
Right.
family. There's 5 kids. So my sister's the oldest, and then 4 boys follow, and he
Okay.
was the oldest. 5 years older.
Right.
And the struggles that people go through based on what they're experiencing at that time, what they're going through, you never know what anybody's going through, even if they're your closest kin, right?
Right.
And he had his struggles, and he lost to those struggles, and it hit us exceptionally hard. That of which I don't think I haven't fully recovered from my mother, right?
Right.
So
To add this in the mix too,
correct,
on
right?
top of it.
But in my mother's situation, you have a person who not only is your mother, but also a best friend, and you're going through all of these new things throughout the course of life, and it's new. Every day is something new, and every single day it's like, oh, this is new. I want to call my mother, or I want to call one of my best friends. I want to have this conversation. What advice would she have given?
Right.
I don't get it. I've never gotten that after in the adulthood, right? Because I was in college when she was away. I do have my father to do that, but
Right.
my father still has a different perspective.
Of course.
Well, with my brother, it's a similar situation where you don't have your big brother around anymore, and then it's for what reason? So I've tried to find solace in my children and the messages that I can express to them via the lessons for which I learned from my brothers and my brother's situation.
Right.
Is it still hard? Absolutely.
Right.
Have I recovered from it? Absolutely not. But I have to use that as the strength to propel everything else that we do.
Right.
And I have to use that story, regardless if it's a great story,
It's the honest.
not so great story, but it has to be the honest story.
I think that's big for viewers, like just with kind of the whole podcast idea, right? Like positivity, pushing through. I mean, my situation differs from everybody's.
Yeah.
I think just hearing from yours with, not, it's okay to not be over your mom's death,
Yeah,
right? It was 2005. I think people think that just because something happens, there's a timeline where it's like, I should be over this. I should be okay. It's been so long. I think it's okay to not be okay about it. And just hearing about, with your brother, I know you told me pretty early on, and trying to go through that along with your mom, just being able to balance it. Like you said, the way that you put it in perspective is like, it's okay. I'm learning how to do this. I'm trying to take what happened in these situations as a learning mechanism. I mean, being able to balance it, and goes back to being mentally strong. Like, you're doing so much right now with not just balancing it, but then turning it to a learning lesson, trying to be strong for your kids and family. Like, I know that has to wear, and I don't know if everyone's going to understand that, but maybe some viewers out there will see this and be like, okay, this is an option for me when this time comes.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to get out there. If you wanted to portray that to people that are listening.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's again, it's inevitable, right? It's
coming.
It's going to happen in your lifetime, whether you like it or not.
Right.
You can hide from it, you can retreat from it, or you can take it on. But one thing I know that and I'll finish my point, but one thing that you had mentioned was in your life trying to figure out that it's okay with where you're currently at and your status, right? And this is what you have to deal with. And you think about it a lot, like with your mother's situation, because again, you're also relating it to your situation. What happens when your parents aren't here anymore?
Right.
And it's you, right? So you have another element that you're thinking about. But I would tell most people, everybody, one, try not to think about that. Right. Because the time you do have is the time you don't get back, right? Agreed. But then you look at overall, yes, like you can't prepare for it. You don't want to prepare for it. But what you can do is live and get over the petty stuff. Right. Remove the petty stuff from the life, because that's the stuff that is actually going to hurt you the most. It's not that the person is gone. It's that when the person was here,
you sat bickering about little things,
or you didn't do what you should have been doing, right, with that person, because you take it for granted. You take time for granted. You take life for granted. You take all these things for granted, right? Like, again, you and I have talked about your strength. We've talked about your story. We talked about what you've gone through. And most people would say, oh, he persevered. He did this and he was great. But what most people don't understand is that, I'm just throwing an arbitrary number out there, but if there's 100 people that were in your situation, maybe 3 to 5 come out like you do.
Right.
Right? Like and maybe it's because they don't have the same nurse that approaches life in a positive manner. But the positivity is the honesty. Right. Like, this is where you're going to be. Right. Figure out how to be the best at this. Right. Again, we talk arts. You mentioned before. You mentioned remember the Titans. Mm-hmm. When their star linebacker gets hurt. Now, this is a true story. Now, their star linebacker gets hurt. He's laid up in the hospital. Coach comes in. He's like, Gary, I think this is a time for reflection. And so he's like, I'm hurt, not dead. Right. Right. And it was the kid that had to tell the adult this. And what did he end with? He said, hey, coach, I heard they have Olympics for people in wheelchairs. That was what his mindset was. His mindset wasn't, I'm going to quit. I'm going to give up. So I can't play sports anymore because this injury happened to me. He said, I can play sports.
Just in a different way.
Just on a different platform. Right. And he went on to go win gold.
I didn't know that.
And I believe in shot put or whatever. She tells it in the end when she's recapping the story and so forth. Okay. That is the mindset that changed, whereas most people don't understand that. And we go back to the athletes, military, big family. The reason why I state that is because those are individuals that are forced to be a part of a team. those are individuals that are forced to understand that one piece doesn't operate without the other. You can incorporate music in bands, right? What happens if the drummer is off?
Steve's the drummer. Watch
right?
out.
There you go. He knows then. If the drummer is off,
everybody's off.
Everybody's off.
Yeah.
And somebody's going to turn around and say, hey, like, what's up?
Right.
Right? If the guitarist is off, if the bass line is off, if all this, somebody has to say something because it's not going to sound good.
Right.
And the people that understand that it's not sounding good will hear that it's not sounding good.
Of course.
And they have to say something.
They can't just sing along with it off beat.
Correct. Like, you have to say something. If you're, and that's what I think, that and some of the extracurricular activities of you know, some of your big time rock bands and groups. But that's why you have these struggles inside of a group, right? But it's that team dynamic. Like, and I don't think that I do believe people can understand the team dynamic if they weren't part of those groups, but I think they just have a different mindset.
Right.
I think it's a different mindset.
No, I hear you. I agree. I mean, I family, music, sports. Like I've lived it since I was born. So
yeah,
I'm in it, and I agree with it. It'd be interesting to get other takes outside of it, but it's another day.
Yeah. And I mean, again, we all sit here and we think sometimes, and unfortunately, it's actually it's a bad thought, but yet it's still a thought, and we're human, so we do it, right? We always sit there and think, okay, where would I be if?
I've had this a lot.
Yeah,
these thoughts a lot.
Always. Why not? Like, what would have happened if this wouldn't have happened? But then we also fail to realize, like, well. Since this did happen, what if?
Right.
Right? Like, we have to look at it from a different perspective. Like, maybe this unlikely friendship happens because that happened.
100%.
Right? Maybe that likely friendship happened because of what happened to me. I may not know. Right? Like, the difference between who you are now and who you could have been could be vastly different. And because of that could be the difference between whether or not you and I became friends. I mean, I don't know who you would have become. 100%. You have a different perspective, right? You're a hockey player.
Don't judge the hockey players.
No digs. I'm just playing.
No.
But again, it's like where I come from, again, sensitive subjects. When we talk about race, we talk about the world surrounding us and being a minority and the experiences that I've experienced, you've never experienced in your life.
Right.
Until you had to experience it in your life, right? And it's an unfortunate event that took you there. But before you walked into the building, when we first met at our previous,
rolled into the building.
As
2024.
As he rolled into the building, let's be PC.
Let's get PC.
And that's one of my lines, man. Like, how you guys?
I know.
I know. But as you rolled into the building, we were already prefaced with who you were, right? And unfortunately, that's the reality of the world. It's although people think that they're doing good, you're kind of being discriminatory in that sense, and it's a bias. Like, why should we be shocked that he rolls in and is in a wheelchair? His brain is still intact.
Right.
His brain can still operate in the same way that it could. His functionality is the same from a mental standpoint. His body may not respond in the same manner, but his brain is there. So the job is going to be the job.
Right.
And you remember what I said to you the first day when you rolled in.
Someone said something about getting good seats or meeting a team or something. You're like, so?
Yeah, right. And I walked up to you because they told us, they're like, hey, just so you all are aware, when he comes in on Monday, he's in a wheelchair, he's this, and this. I'm like, oh, okay. So
yeah, like
why does that matter?
Right.
And then you rolled in that Monday, and Um, I walked up to you, and I said, "Hey, just so you know, I spare nobody."
I do
And I've been
remember that.
roasting you ever since.
That's true, but you know, one of my favorite things ever is if anybody hasn't seen The Upside, it's a movie about a man who becomes a quadriplegic who gets help. But one of the things that truly happened before the movie took place,
Hmm.
we were getting food down in the basement of my job, and Adriel goes up and I roll up with him. And obviously, I'm not as tall as Adriel at the desk height. And person asks, like, what's Adriel? Like, what do you want for lunch? And then
Yeah.
he's like, what does he want? And Adriel's like, I don't know. I can't read his mind. And he's like, ask him. And so the guy looked at me and he's like, oh, sorry. Like, what would you like? And I told him, but like every day after since, he's like, what's up, Brendan? What do you want today?
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
it's things that I appreciate so much that I probably wouldn't have said or bothered anyone or just told them what to do. But like, you see it in such a true, real way that it's opened so many things for me. Even just with that, that gave me the confidence to tell people now when I go do things or other things too, to be like, hey, I'm going to order myself. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
don't
yeah,
think
yeah.
if they ask you, they're going to think twice about asking you again
Absolutely.
every time.
Man, it's so it's funny because people can ask how they can define people as friends, right? And I have a lot of associates. I have a lot of people that we interact with, right? Obviously, that's how the world works. I would say I have some really, really, really close friends that I consider brothers. And then I have some really, really close friends. And all in all, I guess I can define it in the oddest, simplest way. And it's how I relate it to music, how I relate it to movies, and whether or not we could sit on the couch at your house, my house, watch a game, watch a movie, and not say a word.
Right.
Like I
No
don't.
pressure to be like, oh, why aren't they saying anything?
Yeah, like there's no awkward silence. Like we can sit there and talk forever, or we can just sit there and not talk and still be cool. Like we don't feel the obligation to have a conversation, and I think that that's for me what defines real friendship. Like when you're uncomfortable doing that with somebody, right? And it's funny because you after that scene, I think that's when we started the Scary Movie 2 thing where it was like everything is like I can do it myself.
Oh, there was a lot of jokes, a lot of humor going on.
Right. And it's always something where it reverts back to a movie quote or a book or a song or something like that where,
Right.
you know, I remember one day you rolled over to me and started hitting me. He would bump my chair and stuff when I'm doing stuff, and he just ran.
I could move people around.
Yeah. And you said to me, he was like, man, because you said something to me, and I hit you with the retort. I can't remember what it was, and then you rolled over, and he was like, people would think you're an a-hole if they didn't realize our relationship. And I'm like, what? You said something to me first. Like, what are you talking about?
There was one time a new hire was walking behind us, and I had rolled Adriel's chair away a little bit. And so he leaned over, and this kid was walking behind us, a young kid. And Adriel leans over, and he's like, I am going to pop those wheels so you can't roll away from here. And I remember looking back, and this kid was like, oh my gosh, that's so mean. And little do you know, that's what I'm saying. Like, people walk by, they just don't understand it.
Right? I used to keep a wrench somewhere. So I'm like, I will unscrew those bolts, and you will be done.
SOL.
Done.
Just living here.
Right.
No, I appreciate it. And I know our friendship's just going to continue to grow. And
Absolutely.
I loved having you here. And thank you again for expressing everything, how you've dealt with everything in your life. Like I said, super proud to call you my friend. And
Same.
just seeing how you've overcome what you have is a blessing and probably can help a lot of people out there too.
Yeah, I mean, that's my hopes always, via teaching, via coaching, and so forth. But again, man, just a final thought from me. This is a two-sided relationship, right? And a lot of times people don't look at it that way. Like, well, what can Brendan give? Like, man, what people don't understand is what you have to endure every single day is far beyond what most will have to ever experience in their life. And for you to be able to do it is motivating and should be motivating to anybody, right? What you've accomplished in life when the world gave you the worst punches situation you could possibly be in, just a rough situation.
Yeah.
Man, you motivate me. A lot of people can stand on your shoulders if they look in the right way, right?
Appreciate that.
And I appreciate what you've given me, and in return, you know, I give you some roast and help you out where I can. We keep it honest. We keep it honest.
We do.
So I definitely appreciate you too, man. And my kids appreciate you too, and my wife appreciates you, and your family as well.
Yeah, we love your family too.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Of course.
All right.